Most people think the brave path is the harder one, more risk, more struggle, more uncertainty. But what if the opposite is true? What if the choices that feel the most edgy, the most wild, the most uncomfortable are actually the ones that lead to greater alignment, ease, fulfillment? In this episode, I want to talk about what happens when you stop choosing comfort and start choosing truths. Welcome to The Wild Wisdom Way, a memoir and podcast unfolding in real time as I embark upon the journey of getting real as fuck. As I move through the gritty, raw, and deeply vulnerable acts of writing my memoir, I'm inviting you inside the mess, inside the meaning, and inside those magic moments that cracked me wide open. This podcast speaks to the very human experience of how storytelling becomes a path back to ourselves and each other. Each episode weaves together personal narrative, reflection, and lived insights from the edges of growth. This is about wisdom that reveals itself one wild step at a time. My name is Stephanie. Let's walk together. A lot of people tell me that I'm really lucky to be living the life that I am, and that's one way to look at it. I feel that luck may be a part of it. I feel very guided, very supported, very protected and connected in this lifetime. And I'm talking like the human beings in my life. I'm talking about the earth that supports me. I'm also talking about my spirit guides and my allies and my ancestors in the unseen realms who are with me on this path. So that may be a part of it. And I've had to make a shit ton of really uncomfortable choices to get here. The truth is, I chose to leave a steady, stable, and flourishing 9-to-5 career that promised a steady paycheck that is frankly way more than I'm getting paid now. I chose to sell my ownership in a home that I owned in Canada and walk back into being a renter. I chose to leave a marriage that was steady, secure, but it didn't feel fulfilling and alive. And frankly, I think we had stopped choosing each other years before it actually ended. I chose not to be a mother in this lifetime and to give birth to creative projects and expressions instead. I chose to let go of most of the stuff that I owned and leave my home country and travel and eventually live abroad where I am now. That wasn't easy. That was over 7.5 years ago, and that involved learning a new language, understanding a new culture, starting from scratch again and again and again. And most importantly in this journey, I think the hardest decision or the most uncomfortable edge I've stepped to is learning to honor myself, to honor my heart, the wisdom that moves through my body, the intelligence of my mind, and frankly, the intuition that guides every single moment, especially when it goes against the grain. It goes against societal expectations. It goes against everything I've ever known. And there is really no roadmap for this path. And yet, once I started choosing myself, once I started honoring my truth, that choice became easier and easier and easier. Not to say that it's not uncomfortable. There's a quote that I came across once, and I'm going to paraphrase it because my memory is not exact, but it's something along the lines of, a ship is safe in harbor, but that's not what it was meant for. And when I first read that quote, must have been over 10 years ago, I felt every cell of my being wake up. I realized that in many ways I had been choosing a life of safety or perceived safety, right? Because it's a life that fits the boxes that either I feel that I need to fit because I've learned to believe that, or that society, family, culture, etc. feels that I should fit. Choosing differently or choosing to step outside of what is normalized behavior is initially challenging. Yes, it's actually hard as fuck, and it's scary as fuck. Think about Actually, I have been skydiving, and my goodness, I think I was about 19 years old, and my boyfriend at the time and I went skydiving, tandem skydiving. And I was so excited until it came to that moment when the airplane door opened and the guide who was attached to me in this tandem skydiving experience started nudging me towards the door. And the wind was howling so fast, and I could feel the movement of the plane, and I could barely even hear anything, let alone catch my breath. It was so windy up there once that door opened. And as the guide nudged me closer and closer and closer to the door where I was meant to reach out and grab onto the wing of the plane and step out and then jump. Holy fuck, that was the most terrifying experience of my life. Because when I stepped to the edge of that doorway and grabbed the wing of the plane and looked down, what I recognized is that there is no safety here. Yes, I have an experienced guide attached to me, and yes, there is a parachute that we hope will open. And it's terrifying stepping to that edge, no matter what that edge. It might be stepping to the edge in terms of literally taking a jump off of a moving plane kilometers up in the sky. But that edge might also be a life pivot, a life choice, choosing to do something that feels outside of our comfort zone. And initially that feels unsafe, right? Initially that feels unsafe. Of course, because our nervous system is saying, hey, I don't recognize this. This is not within my realm of understanding. Therefore, it's categorized in unknown. Therefore, it's categorized as proceed with caution or don't proceed at all. Unsafe, alert, alert, alert. And I think to some degree that is helpful, right? But I think there's two things going on here. There's that perceived sense of difficulty when we step to the edge and step into making a brave choice, a hard choice, an uncomfortable choice. There's a perceived experience of difficulty in that moment. And then there's also the alignment with the truth of something bigger. When I jumped out of that plane, that first 30 seconds was terrifying. I could barely catch my breath. I was borderline panic attack. But once I realized that I wasn't going to die, that actually I could enjoy the process of free falling. I could experience the wind. I could feel what it feels like to be a bird, to be a feather on the wind. And then when the parachute opened, I was allowed to just float, to float through time and space. And it was so beautiful, so beautiful that it taught my nervous system and it taught my body, mind, heart that taking a risk like that is okay. That taking the leap is not lethal. And that actually what it opened up for me was a whole new world of exploration, a whole new world of desire to see what I had not been seeing previously, to shift to a wider perspective, a new perspective, to understand different perspectives simultaneously, to hold the fear and the excitement together as one. So there's the perceived difficulty in that moment of stepping to the edge of a really difficult choice. But there's something bigger. And for me, that something bigger is alignment with a deeper truth. So I'll give you a life example. When I started feeling the whisperings within that were telling me the life path I was on, and this is like 10 years ago or so, when I started feeling those whisperings that started to speak to me louder and louder and louder and tell me that the life path I was on was a trajectory that fit very much into societal norms of you get married, you buy a house, you have kids, you have the career, you save for retirement. When you retire, you go have a few vacations, you die, that's it, right? That like easy life path. It seems to be the life path that's laid out for most of us. But I felt the whisperings within and it was like, babe, this is not your path. And even listening to that and allowing myself to acknowledge that there was a different feeling moving through me and that There might be some different choices coming down the road. That was really difficult. It was painful. It was an act of surrender. Surrender to my truth, surrender to any sense of guilt and shame and judgment around what others would think about these life pivots that I felt were underway, they were happening. And I could try to deny it at that point. I could try to stuff it down. But to me, that felt harder than making the hard choice to choose differently. Does that make sense? Because we often equate what's familiar with what is safe. And we equate unfamiliar with wrong, danger, unsafe. And I feel like this era of my life has been allowing myself to step to those territories of unfamiliarity. And what I have witnessed in that process and what I have experienced and allowed myself to expand into has been unlike anything I ever could have imagined when I was staying within my zone of familiarity and safety. In my experience, choosing comfort or safety often creates a longer-term struggle. And that longer-term struggle comes from the repression of our own truth, the stuffing down of the voices inside, and saying, okay, I'll just continue as planned. I'll continue as everyone is expecting me to. I'll continue as I am expecting me to. And that stuffing down, that repression of that truth creates this deep inner resentment. And for me, I noticed it bubbling up, bubbling up, bubbling up. It would no longer stay down. So I think there comes a moment in every person's life. I know there's been many moments in mine, and there'll probably be many moments in yours, when we're faced with a choice. Do we continue as planned, even though every cell in our being is saying, this doesn't feel right anymore? Or do we step into the river of flow that is the current of our life and say, all right, I surrender. I'm going to flow with what's present. I'm going to be moved by life rather than resisting the flow of life that wants to move through me. A very real example from my life is about 8.5 years ago. I was living in Toronto, Canada, where I had spent my entire adult life. I had never left Canada for more than, a few weeks vacation, 4 weeks max. And I started to feel this yearning, this longing inside to go explore. But I had no idea what that would look like, and I had no idea where it would take me, and I had no idea how long this exploration was going to be for. Did I need to take 3 months off, or did I need to just go? And I started voicing this out loud, first of all to myself, and then to the people in my life, saying, I think I'm going. I'm going. I think I'm going. And I don't know yet how that is going to take shape or take form, but I need to just go. And it wasn't just I need to go on vacation. It was, I'm ready to leave this life behind and see what life has been calling me into. And that's a hard one because the logical mind can't make sense of it in that moment. I couldn't really explain to people, well, it's because I want to go to this place, and it's because I want to do this thing, and it's because I had no reason. It was just my heart saying, it's time, it's time. There was something calling me forward, something that felt bigger than me. And maybe it was future Stephanie saying, hey, babe, come on, catch up. And so I let go of my home. I left my clients and my work behind and got rid of so much stuff and put some stuff in storage for a few years. I'll be honest, that storage facility was like my safety net. I thought, shit, what if a month down the road I decide I fucked up and I want to come back? That storage facility that had enough stuff to just like pick up my life again. That was my anchor for 2 years. I kept that storage facility. So I want to be real here. The leap is not always just like, all right, see ya. Sometimes when we step to the edge of our comfort zone, we need a little safety net. We need to know that we won't completely fall on our ass. When I was jumping out of the plane, the safety net was my parachute and the expert guide attached to me, right? So I wasn't just jumping out of a plane willy-nilly. So when I was leaving Toronto, Canada, and leaving essentially my entire life, I put some things in a storage facility and I kept my Canadian phone number. For 2 years, I kept the storage facility and the Canadian phone number just in case I wanted to return, just in case my journey decided to wrap up and I wanted to pick up my life there again. And I had no idea where I was going. There was so much unknown in front of me, so much unfamiliarity. How would I make money? Where would I live? What language would I have to learn? None of it was in front of me. It was a blank slate, but I felt that calling. So I stepped to the edge and it was terrifying. And I had doubt every step of the way. I was like, oh, am I doing the right thing? Saying goodbye to my loved ones and my friends and my community and saying, I don't know when I'm going to be back was really scary and really sad. And there was some grief there. But the closer I got to the edge, the more it felt like, yeah, exactly. This is right. This is right. Let's go. Let's go. And then the time came to fly, and I flew. And it wasn't so easy as I just flew and that was it. I was called back to Canada multiple times. I think like 3 months after I left, I ended up going back to visit because I felt homesick. I was missing my loved ones and I was like, what am I doing? I'm not so sure. And there were a few times like that where I had to go back, I had to touch base and I had to check in. Is this really true for me? And so there was a titration. And this is what we do when we're training our nervous system. We titrate. So we step into a little bit of uncomfort or discomfort. We step to the edge of unfamiliarity. We feel what that feels like, and then we step back. Next time we step a little bit further into that unfamiliarity, and then we step back. Next time we step a little further into that unfamiliarity, and then we step back. So titration is everything. And I'm not to say that that's how you need to do it. Everyone has their own way, but that was my way. I needed to keep a little safety net. I needed to go explore, come back to the safety net, go explore again, come back to the safety net, until eventually I was like, thank goodness my parents were available in the middle of the COVID pandemic to clear out my storage locker, get rid of most of the stuff. I ended up just abandoning almost all of it. Once I was away from that storage locker full of stuff for 2 years, none of that stuff mattered to me. I kept a couple boxes of like the really important stuff at my parents' house, and then the rest of it just got dispersed. I even let go of my Canadian phone number that I had had for, I think, 15 years. It was a very prized possession of mine, that phone number. And when I let go of the phone number and the storage locker, it was like, okay, here I am. I've arrived. I'm in it. I'm in the unknown. And I ended up traveling. Many places. Very first place I landed in this journey was Lake Atitlan in Guatemala, where I am right now. And my heart cracked open, just cracked open in a way that I could not describe, nor could I have envisioned ahead of time. And I'll be honest, a few months before arriving in Guatemala, I did not know Guatemala existed as a country. This is how ignorant I was of Central America and this part of the world. I had flown to like Mexico, Costa Rica, but Guatemala, what is that? I had no idea. But I was traveling with a friend, and there were all these signs and serendipities that kept pointing us to this retreat that was happening in Lake Atitlan, Guatemala, a plant medicine retreat. I had never worked with plant medicine. I had never heard of Guatemala, but all the radars were saying, ding, 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 go. And so my friend and I, we landed here together, and I fell in love. Like my heart just felt like, this was why. This was calling me. This was what was calling me forward. I didn't know it then. I still don't even know it now, but here I am. So I was in Guatemala for like 3 or 4 months with a little hop over to Belize and Mexico, and I was starting to feel like, wait a minute, I didn't just leave Canada to land here. I left Canada to explore the world, to explore a multitude of ways of being. That became really clear to me that that was a part of this vision quest, this journey, this expedition, to step out of my own rigid, narrow shell of one way of being and to see what else there was, to see the many, many ways that we can be in this world and the many different expressions of humanity and nature and existence. And so I was in Guatemala after this like 3-4 month period. I couldn't quite get myself to leave. I was so in love with the place. And a friend I had met said, listen, in a couple weeks, I'm heading over to Nepal to trek the Himalayas. Do you want to join? I had never done any mountain trekking besides the one volcano here in Guatemala. I grew up in flatland, Ontario, Canada. My idea of mountains were like hills. A little hill was a mountain to me. And he said, do you want to go over to the Himalayas and trek for a few weeks in Nepal? I said, yes, of course I do. I have no idea what it entails, but yeah, I'm in. Let's do it. And I just stepped right up to that edge and said, let's go. And I geared myself up as much as I could. Literally, I went out and bought the gear that was necessary. I was significantly underexperienced and under-resourced for this kind of an adventure, but I went into it anyway. And next thing you know, I'm in Nepal, trekking the Himalayas, and spent a couple weeks there. And maybe that's a story for another time, because those mountains broke me in the best way, as all mountains do. And so after the mountains broke me, thank you, Himalayas, love you. They broke me open. And then here I was post-trek, recovering in the city of Kathmandu, Nepal. I got a message from a friend saying, hey, I know you're over in that side of the world. There's this job opportunity I saw posted to manage a yoga studio at a yoga and dive center on an island in Thailand. Maybe you should apply. I did, and next thing you know, I was on a flight to Thailand. This was a really uncomfortable choice. I had no idea what I was getting into. I had never been in Thailand. I didn't know the culture, the language, and yet here I was accepting this job and committing to live there for a minimum of 3 months. The logical side of my brain was saying, what are you doing, Stephanie? We need a little bit more evidence that this is going to work out. But I had been cultivating the other side of my brain on this journey, the one that feels into something, feels a yes, and says, all right, let's go, let's try, let's explore. And so I did. I went, and I ended up staying for 6 months in Thailand with this job. And while it was in some ways a dark night of the soul, let me tell you, after the mountains broke me, the islands demanded me to look at parts of myself I had never seen before. And it was tough. I felt really far away from family and loved ones. It was a dark night of the soul, and simultaneously one of the most beautiful experiences of my life. So was it a brave choice? Was it a stupid choice? I don't know, but it was a choice that had to happen. It was a moment of saying yes to life that needed to happen. And when I say needed to happen, it's because it's like that next step that choice provided opened me to a whole other exploration and reality that was just waiting for me. And eventually I got the clear message internally that Thailand was not for me long term. And I went to India for 3 months, and that was a wild, wild journey. As a solo female traveler, I saw some of the most beautiful things and the most heart-wrenching, painful things side by side every day. Talk about contrasts. India was a shit show of beautiful and terrifying contrasts, and it woke up the warrior woman inside me. I remember before I went to India, one of my yoga teachers in Toronto, Canada, said, "Girl, you better be ready to put your bitch face on." And I was like, "What? Little people pleaser me over here. What? Put my bitch face on? I don't have a bitch face. I can't possibly do that." Within one day of India, I knew exactly what she was talking about. I put my bitch face on. My experience as a solo female traveler in India was that as I was traveling alone, I was the center of attention no matter where I went. People were trying to touch me, grab me, hustle me, take selfies with me without my permission. It was a gong show all the time, and I so just wanted to cover up and not be seen. The interesting thing is, about halfway into that trip, I met a man, a lover who I ended up traveling with, and suddenly I was not a solo female traveler. I was a female traveling with a man. And when I made that switch, I no longer existed to the public eye. It was so weird. I would go into a restaurant and the waiter would talk directly to the man I was with and say, "Sir, what does the madam want to eat?" He would look at me and he'd say, "Ask her yourself. She's a human." So I went from like just wanting to hide and being overwhelmed with all the ridiculous attention I was getting in India to all of a sudden, now that I was with a man, I didn't exist. And neither felt comfortable for me. Both realities were like, what the fuck? So I learned to put my bitch face on. That, I feel like my journey into India was like really finding the warrior woman within, the power, and standing in that power and saying, "You know what? No, this is not okay. I'm not available for this." But that was not sustainable for me. So after 3 months, I felt the call to come back to Guatemala. And when I landed in Guatemala, my heart just went, "Here you are. Welcome home." And it's not been all rainbows and butterflies and sparkly crystals everywhere. My journey here over the many years that I've been here has been challenging, beautiful. I am still navigating the realities of making a life in a place that is not where my roots are. It's not the culture I come from. It's not the language that's easy on my tongue. And yet there's something in my heart right now, and I'm open to that pivoting when it pivots, that keeps calling me here. So let's backtrack to 8 years ago in Toronto, Canada, when I was feeling those whispers of, "Babe, it's time to leave and you don't know where you're going, but you're going." I never could have imagined any of this, and the journey continues to unfold. But what it's showing me, and what I keep coming back to, is that what feels like an uncomfortable or a difficult or even a brave choice in the moment, because it's so against what you know and what feels safe and what feels familiar, although that choice feels difficult in the moment, what it opens up is this ease of flow. This ease of like coming into alignment with what's true moment to moment. And for me, that feels easier. It now feels so much harder for me to try to fit into a narrative, a way of being, or a life path that is not my own. That feels like a struggle to me. That feels like, whereas now, stepping into the unknown, stepping into the unfamiliar, it feels easeful because I'm connected to the guidance of my heart, to the guidance of my internal wild wisdom. And that is what keeps leading me forward. And although those choices might look to the outside world like brave or crazy or hard choices, to me, it just feels natural. When the heart says yes, it's like, oh, of course. Of course, I'm going to take that next step. I don't know where I'll land entirely. I don't even know what it'll look or feel like, but I can't ignore that anymore. It's like stepping into the river of flow and just surrendering to the river of flow. I could try to swim upstream, but I'm going to waste a lot of effort and a lot of energy in the process. Maybe you know the feeling. Maybe you've done that where you're like, okay, I'm going to fight this. I'm going to resist. I'm going to swim upstream and every bone in your body is aching. And then eventually you're like, what am I doing? Why? Why am I doing this? I could just lay back and enjoy the ride. It's really what it feels like when you enter into that flow. And I'm not saying it's easy. I'm not saying, let me rephrase that. I am saying it's easy, but I'm not saying that that doesn't mean it's comfortable or familiar all the time. And I feel like this has a ripple effect. Once we start stepping to the edges of our comfort zone, titrating and learning that we can actually go there, and learning to trust ourselves, learning to trust our capacity, learning to trust our intuition, learning to trust the myriad ways we're supported. Once we start going there, this ripples into every aspect of our life, our work, creativity, relationships, our sense of self-worth and self-love. It's like we're telling the universe, yes, I am ready. I am available for this. I have the capacity. Here I am. I am worthy of receiving the highest timeline, the most wild wisdom way possible. I'm here for it. And one final thought I have about all this is that to me, this is the embodiment of devotion to an inner relationship. I know for me that when I started to devote myself to my relationship with my body, mind, heart, and spirit, pathways opened up for me. And devotion requires a certain amount of willingness to show up. And not only willingness, but like discipline in showing up. Showing up to what? Showing up to what my body, mind, heart, spirit are requiring, desiring, asking for moment to moment. And so that devotion to that inner relationship for me really set the foundation for external success. And I don't necessarily mean success in the like traditional ways of success that we've learned. I once thought success was limited to being married, or at least not being alone, having a career that you could count on with a steady paycheck until the day you retired, and then having a pension you could count on until the day you died, owning a house, buying the things that kept up with the Joneses. To me, that was success. And now I see that is so limited. Not that it's not all valid, but it's so limited. There's so much more. And I feel successful when at the end of the day, when I'm in bed, I say, that was a really fulfilling day. I am filled with appreciation. I stayed true to my truth. I honored my inherent knowing, and that feels so fucking successful. So I offer this as an invitation. Perhaps there is a choice that is feeling alive for you in this moment, a choice to do things differently, a choice to step to the edge of what is comfortable, familiar, and known, and leap into the unknown. That choice may feel terrifying. That choice may feel impossible in this moment. That choice may go against everything you know. But if you're feeling that, I invite you to step towards it, and step towards it, and step towards it, and see what that feels like. Maybe you fly. If you're feeling into taking that tender first step, try my free empowerment ritual. It's online, it's simple, accessible, a 25-minute set of daily practices that can help you to rise and thrive in an empowered way. I'm going to put the link in the description, but you can also comment free ritual and I'll send you the link directly. Thanks so much for walking this wild wisdom way with me. If you're feeling along your own path, that you're walking towards greater authenticity, more empowered expression, and fully embodied wisdom, you're in the right place. If this feels resonant, please share your love by subscribing, liking, and sharing this channel with your loved ones. I'd also love to hear from you in the comments. How's this landing in you? What feels alive for you? What's moving through? Let's talk about it. See you in the next episode. Much love.